Okay, welcome back to part 2 of the video. And what we were doing was graphing lines and finding the solution to the system of equations. Now on number 6, they've given us two equations. They want us to graph them and find the solution. But on 4 and 5 from the last video, they were already in slope-intercept form. They were pretty easy to go ahead and graph. Number 6 and number 7 both are in standard form. So you've got many options of ways that you can go about graphing this. You could plug in 2 points for x and y and graph your line that way. Oftentimes when I find an equation in standard form, I will find my x-intercept and my y-intercept. So I'll be plugging in a 0 for x and finding my y-intercept, and then plugging in a 0 for y and finding my x-intercept. Or you could solve them for y, get them into slope-intercept form, and graph them that way. Whatever you decide to do is fine, but go ahead and get these two lines graphed on number 6 and find the solution. Pause your video while you're working and then check back for the explanation. So hopefully at some point while you were graphing these two lines, you realized you were dealing with the exact same line. They had the same slope, the same y-intercept. So it's two lines laying exactly on top of each other. So our solution is infinitely many because they're the same line. Okay, on number 7, we're going to graph it. Again, you're going to have to solve them both for y or find your x and y intercept, but graph both lines and find out where they intersect. Pause your video while you're doing it and then check back for the explanation. Okay, so while you were going along and solving, hopefully at some point you were able to say, hey, you've got the exact same slope, -4/3 and -4/3, but different y-intercepts, different places to start. What that did was gave us parallel lines. They'll never intersect, so the answer is no solution. Okay, turn your page. Now we're going to be looking at a real-life situation, and we're going to graph the two lines. They gave us the equations for the real-life situation, and what we need to do is we need to graph those two lines and figure out what the solution is. Now, because of the numbers involved in this one, it's going to be important to get your scaling right on your graph. So on the y-axis, I want you to do your scale with each box being worth 40. So 40, 80, so on. And then on the x-axis, each box is going to be worth 4. So 4, 8, 12, 16. I think we'll skip one. So 4, 8, 12. Do your boxes on the x-axis by 4s. Remember that x equals equation is a vertical line. So you'll be drawing a vertical line at whatever x equals. And then check back. Pause your video to do all the work and check back for the solution. The biggest thing to notice on a question like number 8, the numbers were very big. That's why we had to work on our scale. But when I graph my two lines, it's really difficult to tell where my purple line intersects with my red line. I know that my x value is 32, but I can't tell exactly what the y value is on this scale. So what I went ahead and did was I said, okay, well, if I know x is 32, I plugged that into my equation and came up with what my value is on y. So the price per bundle of shingles and the price per roll of the roofing paper, 32 is for the shingles and 20 is for the roll of roofing paper. All right, so now I want you to look at number 9, and the question is, which system would be easier to solve by graphing? There's no right or wrong answer on this. Everybody has an opinion. What I want you to do is to stop and think about what your opinion is and justify it. Everybody approaches problems differently. So whatever you see is to be the correct answer is perfectly fine. Pause your video, explain your choice, and then start back up for the discussion. Okay, and looking at them, in my opinion, I prefer the first set, the first system. And the only reason is because the first equation's already in slope-intercept form. I would only have to do a little bit of manipulation to the second equation in order to get them graphed and find the solution. However, I've heard arguments for the second set. A couple of the arguments were, I've had students that are very fast at graphing the x and y intercept, and they find that to be a whole lot easier. I have had other students who just look at it and see an easier way to solve it, either using substitution or elimination, which we'll be doing in the next couple of days. All right, so our very last one is to learn how to use the calculator to solve a system of equations. So what we're going to be able to do is you have to get both equations into y equals, and then we're going to use the y equals button on our calculator. This is a really good solution or method to use when you don't have whole numbers. If they're whole numbers, it's easy to either graph it on paper or just look at the table and see where the numbers are the same. But sometimes you'll end up with a solution that's like 4.8, 6.1. And the 4.8 is not in the table of the calculator. So this is another way to use the calculator, and it will find the exact solution. So what you're going to do is you're going to solve both equations on number 10 for y. Then you're going to put them into the y1 and y2 of your calculator. Then you're going to press the second button, and then the calc button. The calc button is the trace key. So you'll see blue calc written right above the trace key. And then you're going to press the number 5, which is intersection. So you're telling it to please calculate the intersection. And then you're going to press enter 3 times. If you ever do this and you get a no sign change, error no sign change, most likely that means your lines are parallel, and you should go check and make sure that you've got the same slope. So what I want you to do is pause your video and do number 10 and number 11 and write the ordered pair for each solution. Then start the video and check back for the explanation. Okay, so just check and make sure that you were able to solve each equation correctly for y. I've solved all 4 of them, and when you did the steps, you should have gotten these exact answers in your calculator at the bottom of the screen.